Okay, I'm going to solve all the review problems in preparation for celebration number 2. These are the learning targets. Alright, the first part, it'll have these little equations and it'll already be factored for you. So all you have to do is take these little factors and set them equal to 0. Each of these little factors, remember that's because of the zero product property that you can do that. So these are pretty quick and easy. Those two answers, and then same thing over here. X plus 2 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, x is negative 2, and this one is x equals positive 4. This last one, we're going to set the factors equal to 0. And for this one, we get x equals 5. And for this one, we get x equals negative 3 over 2. All right. Next one, we have to actually solve it by factoring, so it's not done for us yet. So remember, this is the easier kind of factoring because it doesn't have a number in front, it's just a 1 there. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be the last number, so negative 14, and they have to add up to be negative 5. So we think about that for a little bit. So let's think. That would be negative 7 and positive 2. So those are exactly the numbers we're going to utilize here when we factor. So it's going to be x and x in the first two spots, and then minus 7 and positive 2. And then we do what we just did on the last problem. We're going to set the factors equal to 0. So we get x equals negative 2. That's one good answer. Over here, we add the 7, so we get x equals 7. All right, this one we're going to solve by factoring as well. So again, it's one of the easier types. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 24, and they add up to be negative 5. So after a little bit of thought, you can come up with the numbers 8 and 3, and you have to make sure that the 8 is negative so that when you add them together, they equal the negative 5. So then we go straight to our double bubble. And we put a little x and x in there. We want one of them to be minus 8 and the other one to be plus 3. And then we set our little factors equal to 0. So this side gives us negative 3 as an answer because we have to subtract 3 on each side. And then this side we add 8, so x equals 8. Next one, we want to solve it by factoring. So again, this is the easier kind of factoring. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 16 and they add up to be 10. So let's think about this. So how about 8 and 2? That work? Yeah. So then we're going to do double bubble. So we're going to do x and x. We're going to put 8 in there. 2 in there equals 0, and then we're going to take each of those factors and set them equal to 0. So one good answer is negative 8, and the other good answer would be negative 2. Alright, next one. All of these I put on the same slide because they're the exact same little pattern. So this is a difference of two squares. Okay, so difference of perfect squares. We call it difference of squares, okay? So, little factoring here. So we go right to our little double bubble. We put x and x. It's the square root of the x squared. And then minus 4 and plus 4. It's gonna not let me write it. Okay, come on, you little booger. Okay. So then x minus 4 equals 0, so x is positive 4. x plus 4 equals 0, so x is negative 4. Same thing for the middle part, little double bubble. We're going to do x minus 9, x plus 9, and then we're going to set each of those little factors equal to 0. So we get x equals positive 9, x equals negative 9. See how these are all really the same? So this double bubble, we're going to do x and x. We got 5 and 5. One's a minus, one's a plus. Set your factors equal to 0. So we get x equals 5 and x equals negative 5. All right, so let's see. Next one, we get into the complex numbers. So we're doing a little adding here. The sign in the middle tells us that we're definitely not multiplying, we're just adding. So 18 minus 6, so that's 12. And then negative 5i minus 8i is actually negative 5 plus 8i, so that means that would be plus 3i. Similarly, for the adding part, it looks like the order is a little swapped out on this one, but just pay attention to the real part being added to the real part. So 10 plus the 15, so that would be 25. And then it looks like we got 22i minus 6i. So that would be what? Plus, let's say, what, 16? So let's say 16i. That would work. All right, and both of those, you'll notice, are written in the a plus bi form. All right, this one, we just want to square it. So we're going to say this is equal to 64i squared. But you remember that I squared is equal to negative 1. So 64 times negative 1. So this is exactly equal to negative 64. If the answer should be written a plus bi form, then it should be written like this. It would be negative 64 plus 0i. That would be a little bit better. All right, next one. Now we're going to get into multiplying. So we're going to do FOIL is just an acronym to remember the distributive property, making sure that everything gets multiplied. So first times first, so that's 18. Then we're going to do the outside, so that's negative 72i. And then we're going to do the inside, so that would be plus 10i. Then we're going to multiply the last term times the last term, so that would be minus, and then that would be 40i squared. Now we just simplify. This can be in as many steps as you like, but I just do 18 and then I combine these two middle guys, so that would be minus 62i. And then anytime there's a I squared, we just know that that equals negative 1 times the negative 40, so that just changes the sign on this one, so that makes it plus 40. So now we combine the numbers. So then that's 58 minus 62i. All right. Our next one, we got, let's see. All right, so this one, it's squared. So remember, this is not equal to, I don't even want to put what it's not equal to, but should I? You remember this is not equal to 4 squared plus 2i squared. That's a common mistake. So what we do instead is we take the time to rewrite this. So we do 4 plus 2i, 4 plus 2i. Now we do it like normal. We're going to FOIL it out. So we're going to do first times first. So we're going to get 16. Then we're going to do the outside, so we're going to get 8i. Then we're going to do the inside, so we're going to get plus 8i. and then we're going to do the last times the last. So we're going to get 4i squared. So a little simplifying here. So we have 16. We're going to combine these two guys. So that's plus 16i. Whenever we have an I squared, we're going to make that a -1. So that changes the sign. That makes that a -4. So final good answer here, best answer, would be 12 plus 16i. Okay, we're going to work on completing the square. So we're trying to make this a perfect square trinomial. So the technique is you look at the coefficient of this term here, the middle term, the linear term. And so we're going to do h divided by 2, and then we're going to square that. So this would give us 4 squared, or 16. All right, now we do the whole process. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to move let me start with blue. So we're going to write x squared minus 16x. We're going to leave ourselves a little blank, and we're just moving the constant over to the other side. Okay, and now we're going to look to add this magic number that's going to make the left side a perfect square trinomial. So half of 16 is 8, so that's 8 squared, which is 64, right? So we're going to put 64 in this spot. We're going to keep our equation in balance, so we're going to add 64 to the other side. So on the left-hand side, this creates a perfect square trinomial. So the factor is great, so it's going to be x minus because of this. And then we can just remember the square root of 64, so that is 8. So x minus 8 squared. The right side is 100, and then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we're going to get x minus 8 equals plus and minus positive 10. And then we're going to say x equals, we're going to add the 8 over. So that's 8 plus and minus 10. Now we get two really good answers out of this. We get x equals, and you can see the 8 plus 10, which is 18. And then you can see the 8 minus 10, which is -2. So those are your two answers. Okay, got another one of these. So same process. We're going to do x squared minus 18x. We're going to leave ourselves a little blank, and we're going to move the 80 over to the other side. So that would make it -80 plus a nice blank. Let's add the special number here to make it a perfect square trinomial. So half of 18, which is 9 squared, 81. So 81 is the magic number. What that does is creates a perfect square trinomial on the left, so then we can factor it really well. X minus whatever the square root of that is, so that's 9 squared. And then on the right, that's just a 1. So now to get the x by itself, we want to get rid of the squared, so we're going to take go ahead and square root both sides. So that'll give us x minus 9 equals plus and minus 1. So then we're going to add the 9 over. So we're going to say 9 plus and minus 1. So we're going to get two really good answers out of this. We're going to say x equals, we're going to do 9 plus 1, which is 10. And then we're going to do 9 minus 1, which is 8. So those two answers. All right, so here's a problem that you'll have on the celebration as well. So it'll be kind of, I don't know, sort of halfway done with completing the square as a method. And you're trying to solve for x. So this is the part where you kind of already factored it, and now you're trying to get the x by itself. So you would take the square root of both sides. So then that would give us x plus 6 equals. And of course, you can't really take the square root of a negative 6. So you have to have an imaginary unit. And then we can't really simplify 6, so we're just going to leave it like that. So we'll say I radical 6. Then we're going to have to subtract the 6 over to the right. So you have to minus, so I would put a minus 6 right in front, plus and minus I radical 6. So that's actually a pretty good way to write the answers, negative 6 plus and minus I radical 6. If for some reason you need to, separate them, then you can. You could say negative 6 plus I radical 6, and you could say x equals negative 6 minus I radical 6, just to see them separate as well. But I really like them together like that, particularly when they're, radicals or imaginary numbers. All right, I think this might be the last one. So same directions. We're just gonna go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So that's gonna give us x minus 5 equals plus and minus radical 14. And this one, you can't really simplify the radical either, so you just add the 5 over. So 5 plus and minus radical 14. And that's about it. Let me just make sure that's it. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna say good luck. Whoops. Yeah, I still want to say good luck. Okay, good luck on your celebration. Okay.